Agnes, do you have a comment on the minutes?
No, it's just all in favor. I thought we had more.
Yeah. No, I was asking for any other comments.
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, okay. Minutes adopted unanimously. Thank you, Magnolia, again. So we're gonna have a couple of people coming in for briefings, probably in about 10-15 minutes, so we'll do some business before then. First topic is discuss research progress and updates. Couple of things, the SharePoint, I think I finally got access to the SharePoint. Thank you. I don't, somebody blocking me.
That was
The IT gremlins, everybody have access? You check that?
I think I need to still work that out.
Yeah, check it out. I've actually added a folder called research in there. And I moved, I think, Sandeep, you had an so there's a folder research, anything you wanna dump in there, subfolders, et cetera, so there's one folder in there, so. I hate when SharePoint sites get, millions of articles. So I like to organize that, so it's in there right now, and the template, I don't wanna spend a lot of time on the template, but updated it based on your latest conversations. I don't think we need to discuss it more just when we start using it.
I tried, there's some fields that are redundant or hard to. I tried to fill it up, like 4 of.
Using the Excel version?
Yeah. And there's some fields that I found either redundant or I'm not sure what the intent of that particular field is, and I didn't bring my computer, so. But I did,
Yeah, but Chris.
we can run
Yeah, so it's good that you're actually using it because that'll reveal some of the redundancy. What,
I did fill it out for like 4 of the things that I didn't upload them, I just saved them on my computer. And for example, where it says content of a report, is the content intended to capture everything every field that is on a report, for example, name of reporter, incidents type being reported, and all those things. But then here you still talk about reporting mechanisms and see that particular one.
Let me clarify what I meant there.
Mhm.
So that basically, in a system, let's say. University system, what does their report look like when they report out their information? What is there? Is it a dashboard? It's not the instant report that's the input, it's the output. So if that makes sense. So maybe you ought to clarify. That was meant by the content of report, parenthesis dashboard, summary report, etc. What I meant to imply there is what does the output look like if we know? Like Middlesex DA has a dashboard with lots of data, trends, etc. Some universities have written summary reports that you may or may not be able to access. So that's what I meant by that. It wasn't. It's probably should be content of system output as opposed to report.
After they've analyzed this incidents, or
yeah, what do they do with it? What does their report look? I mean, there's a lot of data.
Okay, yeah.
When they report out to the community or the university or the state or the town, do we know what it looks like?
Yes,
it's the output part. So we really ought to change that.
So, and what would that difference between that field and the field that says data outputs, dashboard written reports? There seems to be some duplicity over there.
That's redundant. Yep. Thank you. The one or the other. Yep. You're somebody who finally do quality assurance on this. Good. Anything else that seems out of place or redundant? I mean, you will not be able to fill all these out for everything because some of them are unknown.
The other thing that I wasn't able to fill out for I did fill out for at least 4 the things, the research that I was collecting. was, is, the data users. I filled it out as, is it supposed to be who is reporting? Or who is analyzing that information? So with that too, I wasn't able to
Right, so.
figure out what.
Yeah, a lot of this, yeah, I don't think we can figure out unless we talk to somebody. Online, it's not gonna be clear, but yeah, who's using the information
Mhm.
is really the users.
Yeah.
Which bill was that? Sorry.
This one, data users,
Who receives
Yeah,
and
who
uses report.
data users,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
So, yeah, cause when I download a report, an incident form, and I try to fill out the, domain and all that stuff. And when I was like, data users, is that the person who receives? Most times it's a system and then it goes somewhere, but we're not able to know.
So sometimes if you go on a site, a university site, there'll be a form, but then there'll be other information on the site, other documents, which indicates who's using the information, where it goes. Is there a committee that analyzes it? And, again, not, some sites will have that, others will not. Some may have to.
Yes.
This is, if you could fill out this form, you get A+, right? But most of it, you're not gonna get all, so as much as possible. This is sort of very
Okay.
aspirational, but it captures everything we really need to consider going forward, but
Yeah.
redundancy, yeah, we'll get rid of it, but if the information is obscure or opaque, don't worry about it.
Yeah, but I did
Unless
try
you
it
call
out.
somebody up.
I did try it out. So the town of Somerville, Lexington, and the Massachusetts crime prevention something, police. So I did try it out for four things that I looked at.
Did you call somebody in the town?
No, I didn't call. I
Yeah.
just looked at the dashboard and
Yeah,
just filled out the information.
Yeah.
Town of Cambridge, town of Boston, I did, yeah.
so there probably should be in any of these towns, there should be a number to call.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Mhm.
Because I was doing towns and cities as an assignment, so I certainly don't want to duplicate what you're doing. Right, we all have our sort of dreams.
So I did state, mine was state, for some reason it.
Oh, it went back.
It went and picked up some of the,
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
when I was.
Because I had
doing-
Lexington, I had some of the ones you said, and it's interesting because some are much more forthcoming, to your point,
Mhm.
in terms of what is done with the information. Some of them actually define hate crimes versus hate incidents. They put
Yes.
the legal definition, and others are not like that. So it's yeah. But I noticed Lexington and I think Newton, there were a few that were kind of similar. Anyway, okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't.
Yeah, and we're still working out the bugs on this, so use it and, we'll revise it, and feedback at each meeting will be useful. Um. Anything you find really revealing, one of the things I found revealing, which is not terribly, new, is that the different levels of personal identification. There's some forms that request individual names and who was involved in the incident, blah, blah, blah. And there are other forms that just stop with reporting of the incident. I think the person that reports, their name can or cannot be on the form, so that the personal part of this, which we'll discuss more, I think, with our guests, is gonna vary. And so we're gonna have to decide at what level we want that as a facet in ours. So we're not there yet. So that's anything pop out so far that found interesting?
I haven't seen a lot of options for anonymity, but then I just found one earlier today. So I think it depends a little bit. Yeah, and I mean, it says the one I looked at had the disclaimer, if it's anonymous, obviously there's only so much you can do. You can't really get back to the person because they're anonymous. So
Yeah, I'm really curious because if you, there are certain types of complaints where the moment you report it, you kind of have to do something with it.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, I'm curious at what levels anonymity is allowed.
Yeah, no, me too, totally, yeah.
What about, did the schools identify, I haven't looked at the school forms, identified the individual who's reporting and other people
That,
that kids that are
information,
involved?
that information is captured.
It's captured, but it's, it's confidentially captured, okay. What about on the verification side? That's kind of really a stretch to try to understand how these reports are verified, without talking to somebody.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And certain things that you get for the school, you're gonna have to call DCF
That's right.
and make your report.
So again, that confidentiality and anonymity is not standard, or I don't know if that could be an option in certain cases. That's all.
Right, yeah,
Yeah, at this point, we're just capturing information, right? So we'll do that, and then
but some of them say you'll hear back in one place, one town or city, it said within 24 hours. From one of, I think, the lawyers, the attorneys who work for the town. So it begs the question on about verification, they must be doing it quickly.
so sorry,
Yeah.
hear back is not with the resolution, right? It's like, hey.
No, not with the resolution.
We're hearing your
Response.
investigating, right? It's just
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, right, that's a good point.
okay, well, that, research continues, and as far as I know, Agnes, you're always interested in the timing of the project. So I hope that our research and the briefing, so the input will be done by the end of January. Give it another month plus. Or end of January, early February, so then we can kind of sit down and design moving forward with the information. So that's kind of the hope on that. Anything else on the research part? Okay, I'm gonna jump the agenda a little bit because we're gonna have a guest. Lieutenant, have a seat. Come on up. Thank you.
Oh, these are more comfortable chairs.
Sit here.
Except it's.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Your comfy chair.
Our first guest. We have two important guests tonight. This is Tim Landers.
Tim Landers, yep. I'm a lieutenant with the Concord Police. A little about myself, because I don't think I've met everyone here. I've actually worked for the town for 28 years. I've been a police officer for 30, this will be my 37th year as a police officer. So, and my dad was a cop too, so I grew up around law enforcement, but I love Concord. I love working in Concord. It's a great town, and it's things like this that make it great.
So you've seen it all.
Well, not all, but enough. Yeah.
So we invited, and Mina Markarius has joined us by Zoom. So our two guests are here, town council. So Tim, you can go first. So we're starting a series of briefings, and you guys are the first, because we want to become informed about what other groups are doing, some of the caveats in creating the system. And so we know that the Concord Police are gathering information, incidents of various types,
So
incidents, the crime. So we want to, you can just brief us on sort of the history of that and what it looks like, and anything you want, and then we'll throw questions at you.
So currently, right now, when someone calls the police department, we will log it. It gets logged with a caller, brief description of what is being reported, and also will respond. They will take a report if needed. If not needed, then it will just be something that's in the log. But the majority of the times, the officers will do a report. Sergeant will review the report, then I'll review the report, and it gets sent. It's in our database. At the end of the year, we report all crimes, major crimes, to the FBI. However, any hate crimes or hate incidents, those are reported immediately to a slew of different agencies. For example, the Attorney General's office has an online portal that will fill out all the pertinent information. The DA's office, we will fill out a form. They have an online portal as well that we will fill out. We have a very good working relationship with the DA's office. I know that back in July, we had a meeting with the select board and the school board, a joint meeting that was open to the public. And Marion Ryan, the district attorney, was at that meeting. The chief has a very good working relationship with the DA's office, and we can call her, you know, anytime that we need information or assistance, we can contact her. She has someone that works in her office, Antonia Thompson.
Antonia's gonna be here in January.
Yep, so I have sent reports that she's contacted me personally for more information. So we've got a very good working relationship with the DA's office. State Police, a couple of years ago, they started what's called the Hate Awareness Response Team. And that is, we report to them as well, and they just started an online portal that we report to them any hate incident or hate crime. And then the ADL, we have a very good working relationship with the ADL. Sarah Kolb used to be a ADA at Concord District Court. She now works, she's the deputy director, I believe it's either for Massachusetts or New England. So again, I've reported stuff on their portal, and she's contacted me for more information. So that's everyone that we report to. And then at the end of the year, any hate crimes get reported to the FBI as well, because they have a big database.
Back up just a little bit, when you say people report, what types of incidents are reported? What do people, and is it all calls?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's the
So anything
reporting
that-
system is a phone call.
Anything that happens up at the school that's reported to one of the school resource officers, if it's a, you know, hate swastika, for example.
Yeah.
We are gonna contact every single one of these agencies here, and we will forward them the reports that we take. The N-word that was written on the picnic table out in Baker Ave, that's another one that we report to all of these agencies. You know, they'll contact us if they need more information, but all of that gets reported to them.
What percentage of reports move to investigation stage? Is there a type of report that?
So
Thank you for report.
nope, they all get looked into. We don't take this lightly. You know, the school does their investigations as well, but we'll assist them, you know, whether it's looking at videos of people going in and out of bathrooms, you know, with the picnic table, looking at videos from the bank, or, you know, we were even thinking of maybe Dunkin' Donuts, but it's such a broad, and we didn't know exactly when it happened, but we take these seriously and we investigate them fully.
How do you screen the complaints or the calls that come in? Do you look in every one of them, or you screen some out?
We do not screen them out. No, we take them all seriously, and every single one of them gets reported to these agencies.
So, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
After you.
It's okay.
Nope.
We're very polite.
All right, police officer, ready to go.
I just wanted to ask, so since you said that you don't screen them and you report all of them, but do you investigate all of them?
We look into all of them. Now, if it's a crime, obviously that gets investigated, but even a hate incident, we look into everything because it affected somebody. You know, it may not have been directed towards that person specifically, but if it's directed towards a group, we want to make sure that we can find out who did it, because, you know, if it's someone that's, say, young and doesn't know what they're doing, they need to be educated.
If somebody feels racially profiled some way, and it could be not a hate crime, but an insult, is that type of thing reported to the police?
It has been reported, yep.
Yeah.
And
And is that followed up on, or is that, I'm trying to say, is there anything you say, we're gonna record that, but there's no follow-up needed?
well, personally, I don't know of any incident like that. I'm sure there has been. I know that if someone was to report to me that one of my officers did that, that would be investigated fully.
And that would be considered a civil rights violation as well?
Well, if a police officer did it,
No, I don't mean who did it, just that happening.
yeah, if someone was to, you know, use a racial slur towards someone, we would report it to these agencies. Yeah.
So you mentioned, you do report, up to certain organizations.
Mhm.
Which ones of those are required versus which ones do you do it because it's the right thing to do?
I would say that, well, I failed to mention too, the chief always contacts the Human Rights Council as well.
In town, right?
In town, correct. So I want to say, and I'm not positive, I will have to look this up for you. But I would say that the Attorney General's office and the DA's office are definites, because if you've got a hate crime, you want them on board with you. And they're gonna give you advice, whether you do have charges, whether you don't have charges. Now, the HART team wants to document this stuff, and that's the MSP HART team, Mass State Police HART team. They want to document this stuff, but they also have resources as well, where they can come out and teach, train, and assist you with, say it's a school incident, they can assist you with that. And then the ADL, believe it or not, the ADL wants to report, they want reports on all hate crime and hate bias incidents. Does not have to be, anti-Semitic incidents. They want all.
And the timeline in reporting that, is that,
ASAP, as soon as possible. So again, the chief will contact the Human Rights Council. Either myself or the detective sergeant is going to contact the AGs, the DAs, the HART, and the ADL.
So you provide this information to a lot of other agencies. I'm just thinking, in the future, when we've set up our perfect system, people still may just go to the police department
Correct.
and kind of bypass the system. We don't know how.
They could,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's fine. We just want to capture wherever it is, but.
right.
So we.
There may
Yeah.
be people in town that don't want to leave a name. They don't want to, and we can't really take anonymous, well, yeah, we can take anonymous reports if it's a crime. But there may be someone that just wants to report something they don't feel safe coming to the police. I wish that wasn't the case. You should always feel safe coming to the police. And again, I know the chief takes this extremely, it's important, and I do too. The captain does, and this is something that we relay to the sergeants and to the patrol officers as well. So I always want someone to feel safe to come into the police station to report.
But you touch on an important point, because they may be underreporting just for this very purpose, that people don't want to leave their name.
Could be,
Or they-
and
yeah.
that's with every crime that could be, yeah.
Right, so, it's one of our challenges that are, the hypothesis is that there's a lot of things that aren't reported, a lot of incidents, they don't rise to crimes.
Correct.
Obviously, but
Yep.
a lot of, and we have yet to define this range of incidents, in detail. But, so there may be incidents that are not reported. to the
Correct.
police. Is there any verification? Are there hoaxes? I mean, how do you verify a report? Somebody calls up and said, take everything at face value?
Well, again, we will look into it, we'll
Yeah.
investigate, and if it turns out that it's a hoax.
Yeah.
And again, my 37 years as a police officer, I haven't had that happen.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that we've had false reports, but as far as with hate crimes or hate incidents, we haven't. I haven't personally experienced that, but we look into it and we take it seriously, but I can't remember a time that someone made up an incident.
Can I ask a quick question, and just generally speaking, ballpark, how often would you say they are anonymous versus not?
We have not received, and again, that I can remember, we have not received an anonymous report.
For this sort of thing?
Yeah.
and along the lines of, again, you don't have to have a perfect answer on this. What percentage do you think are reported by people in this situation versus bystanders?
I couldn't give you a number on that.
But that, it is something the bystanders could use.
It could be, yes, someone could come to us that they heard this or saw this, and we would take that report as well, and we would follow up on that.
Have you seen a lot more in the last few years?
Yeah. And again, I've done this job a long
Yeah.
time, and there has been a tick upwards within the past, I'm gonna say since COVID.
Do you have, do you ever get information via online whereby people fill out the information online or send an email? Or every hate crime is called in?
Yeah, because we don't have an online portal for people to file a report. We do have a crime tip line, but I don't believe that we've received any calls on the tip line.
Mhm.
emails. I can't recall any, but again, I could be mistaken.
But Tim, you will fill out a report and send it to DA Ryan. You'll use their form.
So there's an
Yeah.
online portal
I
that
do
will
know that.
fill in the information on the portal, and then what we'll do is we'll either attach a report that's redacted, or we'll attach, for example, if there's a swastika on a bathroom wall, we'll attach the picture so that they have an idea of what took place.
But you'll let them know who reported that to you. So the reporting person is not the
Nope,
police.
it's me.
It's
So
you.
because I'll do the report and then I'm the reporting person. Now, anybody can go on the DA's website or the Attorney General's website, and they can file a report as well.
I know, but somebody calls you up, they identify themselves and they
Mhm.
report something. And then you send that to DA Ryan's office, but not in their name. It's
It's in my name.
it's in your name.
Yeah, and then they'll contact me if they need to get that person's name.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that's even when something is a potential crime. So like, is that just a reporting process? Or let's say somebody comes and there's, what you believe a crime has been committed.
Mhm.
So you're wanting to refer it to the DA's
we're
office
gonna-
of prosecution. Is that a different process?
Yeah, we'll go talk to the DA's office and we'll speak with the DA's. And again, the chief has a very good working relationship with DA Ryan. He may contact her personally and, again, we'll forward reports to them. Because they're an agency that they can have that sort of information.
Mm.
I couldn't give it to you or anyone else in this room, without it being heavily redacted.
Mhm.
Right, so this question may be a little bit of a curveball,
Mhm.
so feel free to say no. Where do you think the system that you have could get better?
Where it could be better?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm being honest with you, I don't, I haven't seen any problems with it. Since being a lieutenant, when I was a sergeant, when I was a patrol officer, I never dealt with these agencies. And again, to be honest with you, we didn't deal with a lot of incidents at that time.
Right.
Since I've become a lieutenant, I have been in contact with these agencies. Again, they've contacted me personally or the chief or the captain to get more information.
And if you go back and think of something where you think is a gap, which maybe this portal can help,
Okay,
cover, I think that'd be awesome.
okay, yeah.
Good question.
I don't know if it's an improvement, but since people cannot report anonymously, so you're not capturing that. I'm not asking you to permit anonymous reports, but I'm just wondering what this gap is. It's not a gap in your system, it's a gap in the town.
Yep.
Maybe.
Well, we could have someone call the tip line and say, I heard this, I saw this, which we would follow up on. If someone saw something or heard something, and especially if it's a crime, we're definitely gonna follow up on that.
So let me maybe ask you about this. If somebody in town wants to look up maybe statistics, because that's one of the things we're talking about, having a dashboard, right? Would we be able to find out the number of incidents that were reported?
You could make a records request and you could get that,
Okay.
yeah.
Really good plan.
Public, any questions for
I have a
Lieutenant?
question. If I'm a reporter
Mhm.
and something's happened that has threatened me and is scared.
Yep.
What would make me feel safe from what you're doing that would help?
So we could help you, assist you in getting a harassment prevention order. If we knew who was doing what to you, we could assist you with getting an emergency harassment order, which we call an on-call judge. The judge would decide whether it would be issued or not. But we would definitely do directed patrols so that,
I was gonna ask.
so that,
So go by my house more frequently.
correct. Yeah, and we would put it on the roll call so that the officers are aware of what's going on and to keep an extra eye out for any illegal activity or any suspicious activity as well.
And would you keep coming back and keep, following up with me, or would I have to keep saying
Nope,
what's happening, what's happening?
we would follow up with you, yeah. But we would always want input from you as well. If you learned anything more, please contact us. But we would assist you going forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you. Back at the July combined meeting, DA Ryan brought up that there's a distinction between hate crime, hate incidents, and even looking at the hate crimes, they're not all of them rise to the level that they're going to bring charges. In your dashboard or in your investigation, you said you investigate to a prudent point, everything that you hear. How do you make that determination? Is that something that would be of importance to this body, determining crime, how far you go, incident, how far you go?
I don't think there's any, well, obviously a crime, it's gonna get a lot more attention, but again, a hate incident, I take it personally, I know the chief takes it personally, and I'm gonna go that extra mile so that the person that reports that to us, they're gonna feel safe and they're gonna feel seen, and that you know, we don't want this to happen again, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you.
Yes,
Well, if there's a crime.
crime,
they're
we
gonna
have,
be charged-
they're gonna be
charged.
charged, correct.
Right.
If we can find out who did what and we can bring charges, and again, that's why we work close with the DA's office and the ADAs over at the Concord District Court, because they're gonna assist us and say, okay, you've got the elements of this crime, let's go forward with these charges. As opposed to they may come back and say, listen, it's a First Amendment thing, there's not much we can do.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Do you get many free speech arguments or defenses? I mean, from our point of view, it doesn't matter whether it's a crime or free speech, it's an incident.
Correct.
Because people feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
It's for others to determine whether it's a crime or First Amendment, or whatever. We're not
Yep.
gonna adjudicate that. I don't think.
But we
Well,
have
that's
to
got town
define
council
it.
limit.
Yeah,
We would have to define it so that people know what category they're reporting under.
And that's what I did notice that some towns and cities, when I was doing some research, really did define it. Before you even fill out a form, it said, here's what is this is the legal definition, here's a hate incident, here's a hate crime, here's what's gonna happen next if it gets in whatever the word, advanced.
sometimes people just want to hear that, and again, as I said, they want to be heard and they want to be seen.
Right.
As opposed to, well, yeah, you know what, it's a First Amendment thing, there's nothing we can do. Well, no, you can, hear them, take their report, have it on file, because again, God forbid something happens down the line.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, we don't just brush it off, we will take a report and we will do a report.
Right. Do you talk to other police departments in the area? I mean, this is I don't know anything about how this works, but
So I can say that my wife works in a school, not in Concord, but local, and they have the same issues that we're having here in Concord as well.
interesting.
In the schools. I don't know about the towns as a whole, but in the school, they do have the same issues that we have.
Do most local police departments have the same system as you have? Is there anything unique about what Concord?
Every police department has to have a civil rights officer. So Detective Sergeant Harrington is our civil rights officer, and I'm the backup civil rights officer. And again, we have a policy on, bias, incidents and, hate crimes, and we follow the policy that we have. And again, the policy does state, these are the agencies that we will contact if we have those incidents or crimes.
Any other questions? That's been great. Thank you.
I really
Do you mind if I sit for
No.
the remainder? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can sit here or there, anywhere.
I will sit over here.
Next is town council, introduce Mina Markarias. I don't know how many of you have met Mina, if you've been to town meeting, which I hope you all have frequently. You'll see her
Always.
there. Mina, so yeah, I'm in briefings, I'm not sure it's a segue, but, we're, in developing the system, and you and I have talked, you sort of want to know what to do, what not to do, what the limits are, the dangers and pitfalls and everything from a legal point of view. And of course, confidentiality and anonymity and retaliation, all those things, and public records are all things swirling around this, our ambition here.
Yep.
So take it away.
Yeah, well, good evening, everyone. It's nice to meet those of you I haven't met or haven't seen in a while, at least. Good to see you again. My name is Mina Macarius. I'm a town council and practice at Anderson and Krieger. I'm also town council to Belmont and Lexington has gone through very similar conversations. And I noticed few of you wandered on their reporting page, which we had some input on as well. So glad to see towns sharing resources and ideas. So, the Paul and I had talked about some of these issues, and I think you're talking about a lot of the right ones as you begin your work, which of course is very important. It's important to also be cognizant of the context in which a town as a public entity is functioning on these issues. Um, and so my goal today is just to give a very brief overview on some of these public records issues. It sounds like you've already started talking about a lot of the right things. You're gonna, unfortunately, lawyers' favorite phrases is one of the favorite phrases. It depends. People often don't like that. And I was gonna say it's not because it's a cop out, but now there's police in the room as well. But it's because we're, really it's applying law to facts. And the facts matter as much, if not more so, as the law. And that's the part that gets tricky when it comes to these situations. So as we talk about this, and as you develop your recommendations of what the town should do or what it might implement, we'd be happy to keep working through town manager's office and the select board in figuring out, how to refine some of the advice based on what you come up with. There's a handful of key legal regimes, let's call them, that matter in this context. One you've already noted is the First Amendment, and I won't dwell on that, but that is often where the rubber meets the road of what you can do with the information. There's also the open meeting law, public records law, and collective bargaining and HR issues. And so a couple of these we can talk about at least very briefly, and I'm going to focus mostly on the public records implication today. Um, some of what might get reported through a system like this might run into procedures for formal complaints that are contractually set either by collective bargaining or by state statute for particular types of employees or public officials or private officials. Um, and it's while it's impossible to address all that right now, it does sort of drive this point that I think the lieutenant made that where the information goes next is often key and was really fact dependent on what the information is and who's being identified in it. Because folks might have rights to defend a claim or a complaint differently depending on their status. Um, the town actually has separate labor council as we develop this. I would encourage perhaps Jessica and others to be in conversation with them as well, because to the extent this touches town employees. On the open meeting law, and I'll certainly want to take questions at the end. Let me just sort of run through the different statutory areas real quick. The open meeting law would not apply to individual staff acting on their own, but it would to a board or committee that needs to act on a complaint. So I think, again, somebody mentioned Lexington's goes to the Human Rights Commission. We've had this issue come up of, well, what does the HRC do at that point, right? What do they do with a complaint? Because they may or may not be able to, under state law, meet in executive session to discuss it. If the complaint affects somebody's character or reputation, that may be a valid reason for executive session, although the person accused of an issue would have a right to be there. Whereas something that has to do with someone's job performance may not be. And so where do you draw that line can be very difficult in a situation where someone feels mistreated or been the victim of bias or hatred from an employee, especially a town employee. I know I'm focusing mostly on the non-municipal relationship. That's not the only thing you're gathering, but that's one aspect of this that comes up. There's also a executive session purpose for the investigation of criminal misconduct or when the town is considering filing criminal complaints, but it's a relatively high bar. It really only applies to criminal complaints. And as you're hearing, a lot of that will be driven not just by the, very rarely does the town call us up, for instance, say we want to file a criminal complaint against somebody. That's handled the way the lieutenant mentioned. It's through the DA's office and through prosecutors at the Middlesex DA's office or the U.S. Attorney's office where appropriate. So that's going to be more rare. The biggest category that I think we have thought about when these kinds of reporting systems go into place in a municipality is the public record side of things. Um, as I know you've seen on a few websites, a couple of folks mentioned it. Often you'll see a disclaimer, and it's a good one to have, that all records provided to the town are presumptively public. That admittedly has some chilling effect, and so sometimes there is it's useful to be able to provide alternative means. But what the ability to both collect enough information to really meaningfully investigate something and keep it private might be is often a difficult balance. During an investigation, there is an exemption from the public records law for a pending investigation. Um, Once the investigation's closed, and we've worked with the police department in Concord and elsewhere on police reports that are requested or turn up through public records laws, there are certain things that can be protected for all time. For instance, things that would let somebody know how the police does their investigative work and might cause future criminal activity or malicious activity. Um, Often witness names can be redacted in those kinds of reports, but it's far from clear cut at the outset because you don't know when you're entering as again the presentation few moments ago clarified, when someone complains, you want to hear them out, you want to get the information, but you don't know right away, especially if they're filling it out online, if this is going to lead to an investigation, if it's something that is criminally chargeable or not, et cetera, and how quickly it will go there. Another piece, and someone referenced sort of aggregated data aggregated data as in general is probably not exempt from public records requests to the extent that it exists. The public records law in Massachusetts does not require towns to compile or create public records, but it does require if something's, for instance, in a database and can be downloaded into a spreadsheet, for that to be provided as a public record. And while that may be helpful for some of the work you're doing and sort of making sure that the town is aware of systematic patterns and addressing them, um, it also, just to be a lawyer about this in a way, it also depends on from whose perspective you're looking at it, right? So aggregated data can be used or misused by folks to decide to sort of make arguments about what the town is and isn't caring about, or what different portions and there may be disagreements about what is important to capture and not. So that's just something to keep in mind, is how that data or what's collected can be used both certainly for positive and productive purposes, but certainly there is some risk of claims that especially, I think it kind of goes without saying, but to be clear about it, in a political and legal environment where there are challenges about reverse racism, reverse sexism, et cetera, that data could be mined by folks looking for those kinds of arguments. Not saying that that is a reason for the town not to do something, but it's just something to be aware of that we have seen that kind of activity in the past as well. There also this data, the sort of with identification, et cetera. We've talked a lot about sort of criminal involvement. It also could, and again, none of this is a reason not to do something. It's just with full clarity of what you're doing. It could expose the town or individuals making reports to involvement as third parties in civil proceedings. Somebody has a dispute with their landlord, their employer, their employee, etc. And one party or the other says, "Well, we're gonna mine the data at the town about this employer or about this landlord, etc." That's a possibility, and whether that's done through public records law or seeks more formal civil subpoenas, etc., it can be a time-consuming part of this. All of this really is not just, again, not to say don't do this, but it does highlight for me, I think the biggest takeaway I have for a system like this is it really highlights the difficulty for the town in promising anonymity. Unless you're purely collecting statistical data, and then it's hard to promise follow-up, as everybody's been saying. So that's really, to me, the biggest balance legally. I think it's almost impossible to promise that for sure upfront something's anonymous. And on the flip side, it may be impossible to promise that something is going to be followed up. It certainly is impossible to promise that it's going to be followed up to someone's satisfaction, because we don't know when someone's submitting it that they will be what they're looking for. I know one thing Lexington does that I appreciate, and I think the open meeting law complaint form, actually, for what it's worth, does the same thing, is it really highlights, and you can't leave the box in the open meeting law version without saying, what do you want? What's the remedy you're seeking here? And that kind of helps people think about, I'm just reporting this, or I'd like the town to follow up, and kind of allows you to get it to the right place perhaps faster, because you can figure out, is that a remedy that works or not. Anyway, that's sort of the high level overview. I'm happy to take questions or share sort of our experiences from elsewhere, and we'll take it from there, I guess.
Thank you. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Let me just start with one, not terribly specific, but what are the areas that other towns that have these systems have found most difficult on the legal end? What are other towns run into that
Yeah.
they need to
Yeah.
call you up?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily get every question, to be clear, to be fair, or to be clear, but I think it is really this question of um, the sort of twofold question that's related of, are people, how do we tell people that they can be comfortable reporting this when we can't promise to keep it anonymous? I think that's probably the biggest one we get. And then the related one is this useful? Is this filling a gap that is, there, given that in some ways, as you heard, police departments actually might have a little bit clearer pathway to that, because they're most often getting information that either results or could result in an investigation, and there may be more protection for. So that's one question, is the effort really worthwhile? I think some of these First Amendment and other questions also come up. I will say they have tended to come up more in two directions. One is in the pre-adoption of a system. A lot of questions come up of what can we reasonably ask for, what can we expect, etc. The second place where they've come up a couple of times, admittedly, in the last couple of years, is when there are very strong feelings on multiple sides of an issue, and folks feel that they feel a personal attack based on that, and where the line is between politics and personhood and identity can be very, very difficult. And what's allowed and sort of what's there and what's not. And then, these issues of, well, who is receiving the information and what are they authorized to do with it at that point can also be very tricky. Municipal bodies, as a general matter, whether it's a select board or a human rights committee, don't really have a sort of enforcement lever themselves for the most part. They can do referrals, they can refer to MCAD, they might, in some circumstances, be able to adjudicate things, but then it can very quickly turn into rehashing that same issue that might have caused the confrontation between two people, into taking up border committee's time to deal with that underlying issue. I mean, and just a very obvious one that came up a couple of times where folks very different, often legitimate on both sides, feelings about the October 7th attacks and the war in Gaza, right? Very strong feelings, very passionate feelings, and what someone might take as a completely inappropriate assault on their person, somebody else would say is my free speech, and that's a lot clearer than a hate crime. And so where the gap is between those two things can be very hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, the same incident in that regard, on could, could generate two different reports,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Two different people feeling harmed in two different ways, yeah. Let's go around the room. I have a list of questions. I'm sure everybody has other questions.
I have some, but I don't even, I don't know.
Yeah,
As always. So, a couple of questions. One is, with respect, I know that you say that, towns have a disclaimer about things not being confidential, which I think is really important. But, have any of the towns that you've worked for, I'm concerned that like a person might not understand or have a different perception of what that
Mm.
is than what it really means,
Right.
right? And so, do you have any towns that are actually having, like when people are reporting that there's some sort of waiver or some sort of form that or some sort of
Mm.
extra step that is taken to ensure that people really understand. I mean, I'm not trying to say like people shouldn't report, but it's very easy for somebody to say, oh yeah, I understand it, and they don't understand it, or and then later something happens and their complaint then becomes public
Right.
because it's in a public records request or it's part of a subpoena and people turn over the
Right.
records, so I guess I'm just wondering if other towns have, what they have done beyond just having a disclaimer, if at all.
Yeah, I think when it's been through a website reporting, I haven't yet seen more steps. That being said, I think when I can tell you things we've seen in other formats that might be useful to try to spur in where somebody's uncertain. Um, Certainly when things have come up for, I want this border committee to talk about this issue, often stepping back and sort of explaining what that's going to look like for the body involved, alongside the limitations of what that body can do, make somebody think hard about, what they want to reveal and whether this is the right place to reveal it. The downside, of course, is that may limit more reporting, to your point, but it does at least give people some clarity on it. I haven't yet seen sort of a formal waiver otherwise. Frankly, I'm not sure that it would change a whole lot. You're maybe making folks think twice. So you could make it a
Mm.
mandatory checkbox or something so that people are looking at it. But we all know, even us lawyers, that we check a lot of boxes online, and agree to a lot of things without fully reading them. Full disclosure. So I don't think there's a legal liability for the town in releasing something that somebody unreasonably thought they could have had protected, but it is that sort of hurt of I really thought I was doing this safely. I think if you look at Lexington's, there's a little bit of a if this is an emergency or you think it's a crime, please call this number and talk to a police officer. I do recommend something like that. It may be folks don't have to do that, but it sort of gives people a sense that this may not be the catch-all for everything, and it may be wiser to go talk to your HR person in your company rather than coming to the town or to go talk to the manager of the store whose employee was disrespectful rather than coming to the town first and thinking about sort of what purpose it serves. The more clarity you can put on what are you trying to do with the information, the better I
Mm.
think for that part of it. We have seen that on the school side too. When parents who thought their kid was or had, I think the other end of the spectrum is when folks thought they complained more formally. This is something we've seen a few times than the recipient of the complaint understood, right? So a school department or a town employee or something else who gets sort of a comment that, hey, I didn't like how that person said such and such thing to me, kind of puts it down as, okay, this was an inappropriate thing, maybe talks to the other person, doesn't know that there's a pattern there, and then 2 years later, you sort of find out actually this was a bigger deal to that individual, and they thought it was part of a pattern of being ignored. So you want to be careful of that, right? Because you might be perpetuating it.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you talk about whether the mode of reporting changes anything, whether it's through an online portal or, as you mentioned, talking to a person
Sure.
at the clerk's office versus a phone call or any
Yeah.
of those?
Yeah. So generally speaking, in Massachusetts, at least to date, a a conversation that's not recorded um, does not create a public record. So there is no obligation for the town if it has somebody who is responding to a phone call to produce anything or to produce even their informal notes, employee sort of notes for the purpose of going to do something else um, are typically exempt from the public records law, as opposed to, a log of something, like a police log or a police report. And so an online form is sort of, it's good because you have a record. You're not relying on memory. You're not relying on notes. On the other hand, it does create more of a record. And so that's why a phone number to give somebody, look, I just want to talk to somebody, tell them this happened. I don't really want anything after that. May be the least um, likely to turn into something that gets produced. That person could, in theory, be called to testify under oath later, but that's really the limit, and that's a much higher bar for when that might happen.
But just to follow up on that, if the person, let's say they call, and the
Mhm.
employee takes their notes, but then enter it into a database, then that changes the game, doesn't it?
Sure.
Correct. Yeah, that entry would then be something that's there. One thing that might be useful, though, and again, and again, of course, there's a resource issue of you know, staffing something like that and staffing it with people who know what they're, are trained and can help and, essentially have both the social and emotional skills to do, but also the legal wherewithal to do it. The one thing that is helpful about sort of uniform entry is that person would have some idea of what not to include in case something could become public that may be superfluous. For instance, folks sometimes are upset. This has nothing to do with biased reporting. They write an email or phone or write an email on a planning matter, and then their email becomes public as part of the comments on that issue, and they didn't realize they had left their phone in the middle and no one caught it in a public records production, or they mentioned their child's age and they're upset that that got out there. The sort of irrelevant facts we all kind of accidentally put into something, somebody who's trained to take down that might be a little better at.
It's interesting. I've seen two basically different types of online forms. There are the forms that require you to list your name and others involved and just a lot of, and then there are others that maybe it's just who's reporting.
Mhm.
I think what we want to do is capture data. We're not an investigative body. I
Mhm.
think if there's a disclaimer on a form that says if it's this type of incident, call the police, for example. But I think we want to shunt incident reports that we can capture the data because I think what we want to do is pass that data on to the community and bodies in the community so we can assess who we are and are we improving with time? What kind of education is needed? We want to have beneficial use of the data,
Mhm.
which is something it's not an investigation. So in that sense, if somebody wants to report anonymously, I
Mhm.
mean, Tim talked about that, police require a report, but we can accommodate that, could we not, if we just want to capture the incident?
You could, and not to create a legal issue where there isn't one, Paul, but I think that certainly removes a lot of the issues about identities being revealed or information being revealed, and that's helpful in that sense. I would just say that what you then do with data and the reliability of that data becomes an issue too, right? And one of the things, for instance, that we have seen in very different contexts is that folks who might be, you know, not every incident, as we know, gets reported, and who might be bothered by an incident may not be proportionate to the groups being harmed or not, right? Or who might feel comfortable reporting even in an anonymous world, or might be used to reporting even in an anonymous world. So I think just being mindful of that and what somebody might do with that data. I think that's probably way beyond legal, but it also requires some attention to folks who study this kind of work and study what kind of data tends to get captured and not for um, is it going to accurately portray what's happening in town, uh, either over or under, right? Are you going to convince yourself you have a much more inclusive town than might be fair, or much bigger difficulties that are actually happening?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, this is actually less of a question and more of, I don't want to call it a stream of consciousness, but I'm struggling a little bit. First of all, thank you for presenting. I guess it's not surprising, but I'm hearing that the more we document and the more people go in to report, obviously there's more of a record, and therefore potentially more of that could be, through a public records request could be discovered. And yet at the same time, we're trying to get data, but part of getting data is having trust with the community to feel like they can put the data in a place where, they feel okay about it. And I understand we're subject to these town laws, so I'm not, or to the public records laws. It's not really a question. It's more just, that's kind of an issue, right? That we're trying to do this. And yet it's like the less we write down, the better in some ways, because if I have a conversation with someone, that can remain private, but that's not really what we're looking to do.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I say, and I know that's not a question, but just to react to that, I think that's why I say, these are just things to be aware of. I don't, you all are the ones advising and providing policy direction. From my perspective, it's not inherently problematic. This isn't like I got to call the town manager and tell her you're going to get us all in a lot of legal trouble type issue. That's not what I'm getting at all. What I'm trying to say is, you just have to be aware of what you're doing there, and that I think puts a higher premium on being clear about what you want out of the information, because what you collect will really drive that. Uh, and the risks differ, right, between one and the other.
I think it's very central to our thinking, so that we have to be quite aware of the pitfalls. But it doesn't mean we stop, because there are going to be pitfalls. I think that I'm going to oversimplify. There are probably two types of people that want to report. They're the ones that say, I want my name there because this is important to me to have this. And there are others that are going to seek confidentiality. And so we have to kind of balance that, because I'm kind of a bit obsessed with fear of underreporting, because why are we doing this if we're not going to capture all the useful information? So we're going to have to figure out how to accommodate that, being mindful of the legal pitfalls, but not, and having Mina's telephone number right there. But not have it stop us. Other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if you're able to share with us, but to the extent that you are, what the other towns with, that you've worked with, like what the purpose of their reporting systems are, to the extent you can share that.
Yeah, I can say that's sort of a high level. I think it's very similar to what I heard in the introduction. The towns that we worked with, most closely on this, it was, I think in some cases towns looking comprehensively at, are we listening fully to different segments of our community? I think there's a perception in a lot of towns, um, uh, and from my experience, rightfully so, probably, that those involved in town government and sort of it's are really a small subset of the overall population. And so what might percolate up to folks making decisions on behalf of the town isn't reflective of everybody. So having some measure of that, I think, was a lot of what drove that. I don't, and then also, I think to the lieutenant's point earlier, I think the police departments I've worked with would love that everybody could just feel comfortable coming to them. But for a variety of reasons, historical and otherwise, folks don't always. And so there was that was probably the other big driver is to have somewhere to turn to if the reporting mechanism already available wasn't going to get people to report, whether it's police department or somebody's individual HR, et cetera. Essentially trying to do a reporting that had less of a power dynamic that than folks were encountering elsewhere.
There's also that fear of reporting. For example, if you take a child that is injured in hospital, they will question you, the parent, and they'll think that neglect. So parents, even when they probably are right, they didn't injure their child, will will delay, some parents will delay taking their children to the hospital, the emergency room, because of that fear of their children being taken away. So that consequence on the other end is being thought about by the reporter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions from our public?
I just wanted to add to that, that also, if you're reporting and what you're reporting may be escalated and the person could get fired, there's a whole inhibition there in terms of not reporting. So I don't know how have any good ideas for
And
that.
now immigration status is a big deal. Many people, even when they're rightfully citizens, will fear to report because by the time you really prove yourself, you're probably chained up and taken somewhere, and then it takes a while to so
Well,
people.
that's two ways. It's retaliation for the reportee, and consequence for the person being reported.
Yeah, I will say that one of the things we've heard, so one of the things some of my colleagues also have done is work in. I have colleagues who do internal investigations work, and sometimes they've done it proactively for communities or entities who want to sort of get a culture analysis, sort of understand what things aren't being talked about, and the sort of sense that I think some people would say, I want someone to know, and just to the first point, I want someone to know that these issues are out there and that this isn't a perfect environment for someone who looks, thinks, loves, whatever, like me. But I'm not trying to actually, what the remedy I want is not reprimand, discipline, anything else. I just want folks to know that it's not perfect out here. That I think is actually one of the reasons sometimes these systems work better is it's sort of a little bit of lower stakes on both ends. I'm just reporting, I want it to be known, but I'm not looking to get this person fired, relocated, etc., which is very different than there's a real danger this person's causing and I want you to know about it. So that is definitely, one of the advantages perhaps of anonymous reporting, or at least in some ways, counter to what I was saying earlier, when you were saying what kind of advice. In some ways, when towns or an entity lets it be known how little they can do about something, and it's more of an awareness raiser, that itself can have some value. It doesn't solve all problems, but it's why if you're doing something like that, you want to make sure people know where to turn to if there is a real bigger issue, abuse, neglect, criminal activity, etc. you don't want that to necessarily be reported the same way, but that it allows for that maybe more subtle stuff that folks aren't able to express to a colleague or a, an acquaintance as easily.
I'm glad you raised that term, raising awareness, because that is, I think that's central to what we're trying to do. With that, and thank you for that observation. With that note, you bring this segment to a close. Any other questions? I want to thank Lieutenant
Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you.
and Mina for briefing. These are extremely
Yeah, thank you all.
useful to us. Stimulates conversations and connections and what to do and what not to do, and we have a ways to go. But thank you very much.
Thank
Feel
you.
free to stay for the next 20 minutes, but if you don't want to,
I'm gonna go home and have some dinner.
oh, we should have brought this.
And
Thank
I
you.
have to run to another meeting, so please don't take it
Thanks,
personally,
Mina.
but thank you.
Thank you, thank you. That's great. Just FYI, I've been in touch with the DA's office, and Antonia Thompson is going to be here on the 15th. That's our second meeting. I've asked the DEI co-chairs just recently to kind of brief us on January 6th. They haven't responded yet. They haven't confirmed, but one of the mental health professionals who I haven't yet identified, but I think Jessica has given some names. I want a slot in one of those two, and then I've been in touch with Carlos Hoyt. Joe Palumbo brought Carlos's name up as so the DEI 101. Well, you could argue that should have been done first, but we're not doing it first. Carlos and I are still talking about how to focus his efforts, so that's not firm yet. But I'm still in conversation with Carlos to try to get him sometime in January to start connection. So that's sort of on the radar on briefings. Any other questions, suggestions on briefings or anything? Because I want to turn to focus groups. Because Deb has given some thought to those. We brought at the last meeting, we said, that's a good idea. How are we gonna pull that off? Take it from there. I know you prepared something.
So it's scheduled. And I think Magnolia emailed the folks at the town, Magnolia and Jessica both helped me. So both of you, thank you. I drafted the notice, but then they put it on the nice letterhead for the town and put Magnolia's name for the contact for people to sign up. And then Jessica, in case somebody needs like a reasonable disability accommodation or modification. So it's scheduled for January 12th, which is Monday from 5:30 to 7:30 at Senior Center in, forget what room it is, the one in the lower lecture room. Thank you. And right now, I decided could be up to 15 to 20 people at the most. And the
Sorry,
only,
Debbie, what time did you say it was?
from 5:30 to 7:30.
Thank you.
We gonna put up that letter, we
You
gonna,
wanna put the, and we haven't posted it yet, but
yeah, let me just step back a little bit. So you're thinking now. Let's have a focus group and see, maybe we have to have others, but let's start off with.
right, so
one.
this one, and I did this based on the conversation we had,
Yeah.
but I can go ahead and schedule a second one. This one, we already have the room secured we submitted the request to the person at the senior centers and she approved it. And so we've got it reserved,
I'm sorry, January 12th.
from 5:30 to 7:30. And I just have to pick up the key that day by 2 o'clock. And then, basically, the way I've written the letter is that, telling people the date, it made it really kind of simple because I wanted it to be accessible to people and I didn't want to make it complicated. We can certainly modify it if needed because it's not yet been posted, but I'd like to, just get everybody's approval so that what we would do is post it on the town's website. However, Jessica and Magnolia, whatever they decide is the best. And then what we would do is also send it to the bridge once it's approved. What I did here was I wrote that there will be, another one scheduled, but the first one is going to be on January 12th from 5:30 to 7:30. I gave the location, and there's a little introduction that basically in a very simple way just explains what we're looking for. And getting the input basically on what the public, what their experience has been with hate and bias incidents and that sort of thing, what they think that the barriers to reporting are, because I think, as you pointed out, that's like
Yeah.
a very key question that we want to address. And so I wanted to get input there, and then also what is needed to overcome the barriers.
So you basically have a little bit of a script. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Are you gonna?
Yeah, so they were basically covering those three topics. I mean, we could expand it. So, feel free to like propose edits here, but I was just trying to give sort of three things that we would focus on, three main questions that we would focus on, so that the people who were there, we would start out with like, okay, what's your experience? And then what are the barriers to reporting, or what do you think the barriers are? And then what do you think would be needed to overcome those barriers, so that we could take that information and try to then infuse that in any system that we develop.
The fourth question is there, like input on the use and value of the system. Is that?
Okay, we could add that.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
like inputs of the public, how you have a system, how would you like to see it used by the town?
okay.
So I don't have any experience with focus groups in town. Jessica, you thought about, are there any approvals needed? This isn't a working group meeting, so this is not subject to open meeting law, I would assume. This is a focus group.
As long as not more than,
What's that?
as long as not more than three of us show up.
Right, are there any specific approvals needed for this? Jessica?
I mean, I think it's fine to put on the DEI page. I don't know, Magnolia, if you had any conversations with the chairs of DEI Commission about this, or Deb, have you spoken with them?
I honestly didn't know that I would need to do that. I assumed
I
this
don't think
was.
necessarily we need to, but certainly between Magnolia and I, we can brief just Rose and Andrea. I mean, they in theory are aware of this group's work and what we're all trying to do here. So I can't see why there would be.
Yeah, we have our liaison here.
Couple of
It could
questions.
be on the DI page, but I think it should be on the town
I think
page
so.
and in the bridge. I don't.
Yeah, we'll get it there too. I know that Donna McIntosh can get it posted like on the Facebook page for the town, and we'll definitely get the word out. And then the bridge is typically good once you get a hold of somebody there that can get it where it needs to go. So I did pass on that information to Deb as well.
The charter for this is from the select board, right? So it should be at
Yeah.
the town level. On that letter, awesome. There was only, I think in the top it said bias and hate. I think it's bias and hate incident reporting.
Oh, sorry.
So-
Okay.
It's just
I was
small bit.
confused.
What was I gonna say? How are we gonna select people? Is this just first come, first serve, or was there a criteria?
Well, that's what I thought about this quite a bit. It's
Yeah.
an important question. And I landed on sort of first come, first serve I was trying to get to be as fair as possible, so that people didn't feel like there was some criteria that was exclusionary. So I was trying to just like, if you want to come, sign up by this date, and we'll have another, that was why I was also hoping to have the second one in case, someone like we filled up, I don't know, maybe nobody will come because it's the dead of January and freezing out, nobody wants to do it. But that way if we had a second one, then a person could still be included. I was just trying to figure out how do we include as many people as we can who want to
Are
participate.
you going to ask for information from these people, how old they are, where they live, how long they've been in town, stuff like that? The things you can't ask about, I guess, can you ask about age? Yeah, I don't know. Ageism. What do you get to
You might just have a sign-in form where, they can select the age bracket. And for the first meeting, I think first come, first serve is, in my mind, the best way to go. And if we don't get, broad enough segment of, Concord, then we can decide how we want to select for the second focus group.
Yeah, and I think definitely would want to speak to the town council about how that gets done, so that I,
Yeah. Well, you know,
we'll
we'll
find
find,
ourselves definitely with that.
you know. There are many kind of, right here. I would like to arrange people who've been in town, recent additions to town, and people who've been here a long time. That regardless of age, gender, anything else, I think because those perspectives, among others, are really important. So, if you had us one question, and you could permissibly say how long you lived in town. I don't know, think about that.
But you're saying that will inform based on what happens in the first one, if we don't have a good
I think we've
sampling,
right?
that could inform what we do. The second one, based on what you learned from the town council. I mean, making sure we're doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the safest way to go is to do the first come, first serve for this first one, and then we can see about if there are criteria. And if so, what that can be, I think we should think about that.
Right, and Debbie, I think by the time we finish that first focus group, we will have more information with all of the other information we can gather in from other towns. So maybe we're like, maybe this is a segment of town that we need to hear more from. So I think we will be better placed to add value to that question at a later time. So my thoughts are first come first serve is good for now.
So we don't have a lot of time here. I'm just thinking of other committees and forming other committees, and but we don't, who knows who's gonna meet between now and January 12th.
Yeah.
I think particularly the Council on Aging should be up in their bulletin board, for example.
They're meeting tomorrow night too. I can certainly mention it at their board meeting.
Great, great.
Okay,
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, it's a bit of an experiment. And we could, if this is successful, you do a few of them.
yeah,
Thank you for leading that. I guess there could be one of us there. I may sit there in the background.
okay.
I'm traveling, so I'm out. Anyway.
Okay, if anybody else wants
Who else
to
wants
attend,
to
let me
go?
know. Yeah.
What date?
Mhm.
What date?
Oh, I'm sorry, the 12th of January. Are you still away then?
No, I'll be back,
Yeah,
but
that's
there's a
just
lot
coming
of
back.
back, yeah. I
You
just
have
don't-
more. Attending. Quorum. If
We
there
only
were
have
more.
two. Well, that's why I asked.
I mean, we could- I mean, I could take,
I do
I
a
mean,
schedule.
I said there were gonna be two, I guess
You
part
did say first come first serve, right?
I mean, I said there would be another one to be determined, like the scheduling, just because we didn't know. I could take that out and just say others will be scheduled,
Yes.
so we
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Like confine it to two,
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
And my next one, if we do it, I really wanted to do it in the library if possible. So that we have one in West Concord, but also one in the other part of Concord, so that just to make it easier for people to get
different time
to.
of day and.
Yeah, like maybe, I was also like thinking about, well, I want to be careful because like on a Saturday, some folks aren't able to come, and then on a Sunday, some people, so maybe I'll do it like, figure out like
Yeah.
some other time during the week, but yeah, we'll have to, some way to make it as accessible.
Yeah,
You've run focus groups before, you know what you're doing, so.
I have a sense, I think we talked about it before, that these focus groups could be more useful as input than a forum. A forum, we need to, when we figure out what we're doing, then we gotta present to the public, but to get public input, just having an open forum might not be as useful as this.
Yeah.
And I'm actually equally interested in what the response are and how you are running it. I want to see how you're doing it. It's an education. Thank you for doing that. Good.
So I guess, can I just ask Magnolia, do you mind just emailing me a Word version of
I
that?
just
Oh, you
did,
did, thank you. What I will do later tonight, I have to go pick up Craig from the train, but in Boston, but when I get back home later tonight, I will modify it to add the fourth question that you suggested. And just to make sure I have it written down correctly, which would be, how would the people in the focus group suggest that we use the system? Is that correct?
A phrase like that, or just, how to maximize the usefulness of the system. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, how do you envision this data being used?
Yeah, just input on the use, however you phrase it.
Okay, I'll do that, and then I'll change it just to say there will be other focus groups scheduled without a number of.
Right,
them.
no, not over committing, but
Just saying
Committing.
other.
yeah, exactly. Nice and.
Additional ones, so additional focus groups.
Any comments and put on?
Thanks, sounds good. Yeah, so there's another similar group, I don't, Concord retired, you know, that if you're looking at age, that I know they meet monthly. I just got a, notice from them, if you're, and they meet usually in the West Concord, the complex adjacent to Show Baker. I mean, the complex there.
I'm not sure I know what that is. It's on me, is it on me?
Yeah, well, the newer complex has got, it's got a Brigham affiliate offices in there.
Oh,
The apartments in the
The
back.
apartments in the back, yeah.
oh, okay, kind of near the train station, is that where that
Back behind.
is? Okay.
So you're not gonna get it in the bridge for this Friday, and I don't know if they're publishing on the 26th
I think so, they're not.
or not.
Yeah.
So the first time it's gonna be in the bridge is gonna be on January's, I assume, the day after New Year's. I don't know.
January 2nd. I need to
Enough
also,
time to get in the bridge, but
yeah.
um,
So I can, send it to them, like, once I get home tonight, I can make the changes and then I can send it to them, and I don't know if there's any, in your experience, a way to expedite it, or, I mean, or they just. Okay,
they usually take, well, this is going to be an opinion piece.
oh, is it, I didn't know, like, that was the other thing, I mean, is it
Yeah,
a
you
letter?
have to submit it as opinion in the 300
And you can
word.
also submit a event, right?
Can't you
Just
just
to
say
make-
it's an event?
Isn't that advertising?
You can put it in the calendar, but you can't have the whole. the whole
Yeah,
dis-
and I
Oh, I
don't know
see.
what their criteria is for what they put on their Facebook page. It could be if it's of importance, which I would think that they would think this is, but I'm sure everybody thinks the thing is important, that they, even if they can't get into a print edition right away, that maybe they would at least get it on the web and their Facebook page. You can't hurt to ask.
I was planning, I mean, what I was hoping is I could just send the document and then.
Yeah.
Is that okay to do that one?
Yeah.
I don't really.
Yeah, send that to me. I'll look at it tonight.
Send it to you too,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll try to find out some more information for the bridge about
Okay,
their
which
suggestion.
one?
Yeah.
Okay, and in the meantime, so I'll edit it tonight, late, and so I'll send it back, so like in the morning, you all will have a new one that reflects the edits. And just because I will get back to.
Yeah. I mean, some things on the website get prominence, like events and workshops and, I don't know what you call those, banner headlines on
Right, yeah,
the homepage.
yeah, I think so, but my own experience is actually posting a job advertisement and we have to pay for it. So I'm not sure about how to do this.
Yeah,
one.
will
I
it
think
cost money?
What, on the webpage?
Oh, on the web, I'm sorry, on the webpage, yes, I can definitely help with that one. I thought the Concord Bridge, yes.
Oh, no, the bridge, I'd submit it just as an
Yeah,
opinion
Because
letter.
there's a letter-
A letter to the
Like a
bridge
letter
and
to the
then
bridge.
see if you can, and then as an event, put on the event calendar.
Yep.
Oh,
Those two
I think
things.
even calendar, you can just submit all the activities that are happening.
okay, I guess I'll look on.
The way I
website.
understand it, I've never used it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've never used the event calendar, but it's there.
okay,
I've used the opinions many times.
yeah, I've used those, but never the event calendar, so, okay, I'll look for it, I might need to ask for help again, but, sorry, you guys.
And if not, they're fairly responsive, we just call them and see what they do.
Yeah, we can do social,
Okay.
we can do that.
This is great. And it's 8:01, what timing? So next meeting dates, just to confirm that, are January 6th and January 15th. I know some can't eat. Well, whoever can make it, please make it. There'll be a similar agenda. On the 6th, we'll have
Sorry,
final
Paul,
discussion about the public
I wasn't following, you said Jan 6th and Jan.
15th.
15th. Okay,
And then we're back to the usual time, like the 5:30 time for both of those, or 6 o'clock, right?
usual.
6, sorry, 6.
And this one usually, there was just this housing thing, so I'm sorry. Okay, any further public comment? Okay. Any further business? Excellent, meeting's adjourned. Good meeting, guys.
Thank you.